August 31st, 1943, 27,000 feet above Marcus Island. Lieutenant Richard Loesch banks his Grumman F6F Hellcat into attack position. The massive fighter's 2,000 horsepower Pratt and Whitney double Wasp engine roaring with unchecked power. Below him, Japanese bombers sit exposed on the airfield like toys on a table. This is the Hellcat's first combat mission. Nobody knows yet what this machine will become. Through his gun sight, Loesch watches a twin-engine bomber taxi across the runway. His thumb hovers over the firing button. 6 50-caliber Browning machine guns wait in his wings, loaded with 3,400 rounds of destruction. He squeezes. The Hellcat shudders as all 6 guns open fire simultaneously. Tracers arc downward. The Japanese bomber disintegrates. The first kill belongs to Loesch. The first of 5,223. 400 miles west at Rabaul, the report arrives within hours. American carriers have deployed a new fighter. Descriptions filter through Japanese intelligence: barrel-shaped fuselage, enormous wings, a radial engine that makes the aircraft look pregnant from the side. The initial assessment is unanimous. The Americans have built another Wildcat, only fatter, only slower, only easier to kill. Flight Petty Officer Saburo Sakai, veteran of combat from China to Guadalcanal, reads the intelligence summary with his one good eye. The other was destroyed by a dauntless gunner a year earlier during a dogfight that should have killed him. He flew 4.5 hours back to Rabaul with his skull fractured, his eye socket shattered, partially paralyzed. He survived because his Zero could fly with damage that would ground any other aircraft. Now he reads about this new American fighter with skepticism bordering on contempt. Another heavy fighter, he tells his squadron mates. The Americans still haven't learned. They build trucks and try to make them fly like hawks. The Japanese aren't wrong about the Hellcat's appearance. When Grumman's chief designer, Roy Grumman, and his engineering team conceived the fighter in 1941, they prioritized survival over elegance. The F6F weighs 9,900 pounds empty. That's 65% heavier than the nimble Zero. Its wings span 42 feet, 10 inches, providing 334 square feet of lifting surface. Compare that to the Zero's 241 square feet. The Hellcat doesn't look like it should dominate anything. It looks like it should fall out of the sky under its own weight, but appearance deceives. Inside that corpulent fuselage sits engineering genius. The turbosupercharger system maintains sea-level engine performance at 27,000 feet, where Japanese fighters gasp for air. The armor protection includes 3/8-inch steel plate behind the pilot, 1/2-inch bulletproof glass, and that massive radial engine itself acting as a shield. The fuel tanks are self-sealing. The control surfaces are fabric-covered, allowing bullets to pass through, leaving only small punctures instead of catastrophic structural damage. And those 6 guns. Each Browning M2 fires at 800 rounds per minute. Together, they deliver 6,000 projectiles per minute. At convergence distance, typically 300 yards, all 8 ballistic paths intersect in a zone roughly 6 feet in diameter. Anything in that zone faces 100 half-inch projectiles per second, each traveling at 2,900 feet per second. The Japanese discover this mathematics firsthand over Tarawa on November 19, 1943. Lieutenant Commander Hamilton McWhorter leads Fighting Squadron 24 off the carrier Belleau Wood. His radar controller vectors him toward incoming Japanese aircraft. Zeros, lots of them. McWhorter spots them at 12,000 feet, a formation of 30 fighters escorting bombers toward the American invasion fleet. The Hellcats have altitude advantage. McWhorter rolls inverted and dives, his wingmen follow. The formation accelerates past 400 miles per hour, faster than any Zero can achieve even in vertical descent. Japanese pilots spot the diving Americans and break formation, turning hard left to bring guns to bear. But the Hellcats don't turn with them. McWhorter learned this lesson in training. You don't dogfight in a Hellcat. You dive, shoot, and climb away using your superior speed and power. The Zero can turn inside you all day. It doesn't matter if you never let it. McWhorter lines up a Zero in his gun sight as it tries to evade. He fires a 2-second burst. 80 rounds converge on the Japanese fighter. The Zero's wing separates from the fuselage. The aircraft tumbles into the ocean, trailing smoke and debris. McWhorter doesn't celebrate. He's already climbing, trading his speed for altitude, positioning for another attack. Around him, his squadron mates are doing the same. Dive, shoot, climb. Dive, shoot, climb. It's not elegant. It's not honorable aerial combat in the way the Japanese understand it. It's industrial warfare distilled to its essence. By the time the engagement ends, Fighting Squadron 24 has claimed 30 Japanese aircraft destroyed. 1 Hellcat is lost. The pilot is recovered. Japanese intelligence files grow thicker with Hellcat encounters through December and January. The reports are confusing, contradictory. Some Zero pilots report outmaneuvering the American fighters easily. Others describe being unable to escape, unable to catch them in dives, unable to damage them even with direct cannon hits. The inconsistency suggests American pilot quality varies wildly. Some are clearly inexperienced. Others fight with precision that suggests extensive training. What the Japanese don't realize yet is that every American pilot in the Pacific is being rotated home after completing a combat tour. Those experienced pilots become instructors. They teach the next generation everything they learned in actual combat. Japanese pilots receive no such rotation. Veterans fight until they die. Replacement pilots arrive with theoretical knowledge but no practical wisdom. The institutional learning exists only in the minds of the survivors, and the survivors are becoming fewer each month. Lieutenant Junior Grade Eugene Valencia joins Fighting Squadron 9 in January 1944. He's logged over 500 hours in Hellcats before ever seeing combat. His instructors were veterans of Guadalcanal, who taught him not just how to fly but how to survive, how to position, how to manage energy, how to work with his wingman, how to exploit the Hellcat's strengths while avoiding its weaknesses. Valencia will eventually command the famous Flying Circus, a 4-plane division that will destroy over 50 Japanese aircraft using tactics taught by those rotated veterans. He'll describe the Hellcat with affection bordering on love. "I love this airplane so much that if it could cook, I'd marry it." But in early 1944, he's just another new pilot entering a war that's about to intensify beyond anything seen in human history. The Japanese still don't understand what's coming. They see the Hellcat as another obstacle, perhaps more durable than the Wildcat, but fundamentally beatable through superior pilot skill and aircraft maneuverability. This confidence is understandable. For 2 years, Japanese pilots have dominated Pacific skies. Their early victory ratio approached 10-1 in their favor. They've been fighting continuously since 1937. Many have over 1,000 hours of combat experience. The Americans have been in the Pacific barely 2 years. Their pilots are younger, less experienced, flying heavier, less maneuverable aircraft. By every historical precedent of aerial warfare, the Japanese should continue winning. But history is about to be rewritten. The Marianas operation is approaching. 15 American aircraft carriers are converging on the Philippine Sea. Aboard them sit 480 Hellcats, their wings loaded with ammunition, their pilots trained to industrial precision. They're flying to meet 370 Japanese aircraft, whose pilots average 200 hours of flight training. The massacre will be so complete that an American pilot watching the slaughter will describe it as just like an old-time turkey shoot. The name will stick. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, the moment when Japanese naval aviation dies. But that moment is still 5 months away. For now, in early 1944, Japanese pilots still laugh at the fat American fighters, still believe their Zeros are superior, still think skill and spirit will defeat industrial power. They're about to discover they're wrong. The philosophical divide between American and Japanese fighter design reflects 2 completely different theories of warfare. In Tokyo, military planners obsess over quality. Elite pilots flying agile aircraft, each man a samurai of the sky. In Washington, planners think about numbers. Good pilots flying good aircraft, produced fast enough to flood every battlefield simultaneously. Both approaches work until they don't. The Japanese approach dominates early warfare against inferior opponents. The American approach requires time to mobilize. Once mobilized, it becomes unstoppable. Grumman Aircraft Engineering Corporation understood this when they designed the F6F. Chief Engineer Roy Grumman gathered his team in June 1942 as reports filtered back from Midway and Coral Sea. American pilots flying Wildcats were holding their own against Zeros, but barely. The Wildcat was outclassed in speed, climb rate, and maneuverability. Only superior armor, self-sealing, fuel tanks, and aggressive tactics kept American pilots alive. "We need to build something that keeps our boys alive," Grumman told his engineers. "I don't care if it's pretty. I don't care if it's elegant. I care that it brings them home." The result first flew on June 26, 1942. Test pilot Selden Converse climbed into the XF6F prototype and advanced the throttle. The massive double Wasp engine roared. The aircraft accelerated down the runway, lifted off, and climbed with power that shocked everyone watching. This thing was supposed to be too heavy to fly well. Instead, it flew like it was angry. The engine made the difference. Pratt and Whitney's R2-800 double Wasp produced 2,000 horsepower from 18 cylinders, arranged in 2 rows. That power pushed the Hellcat to 376 miles per hour at 17,000 feet. More importantly, the turbosupercharger maintained that power at altitudes where Japanese engines struggled. At 25,000 feet, a Zero's Nakajima Sakai engine produces barely half its rated power. The Hellcat's double Wasp is still producing full rated power at 27,000 feet. Combat in the Pacific rarely happens at sea level. It happens at altitude, where formations cruise efficiently and spotters can see hundreds of miles. At these altitudes, the Hellcat transforms from heavy truck into predator. It outclimbs the Zero above 14,000 feet. It outrolls the Zero at speeds above 235 miles per hour. It outdives everything in the Japanese inventory by such margins that diving away becomes a guaranteed escape. The only thing the Zero does better is turn at low speed. In a slow-speed turning fight, the lightly loaded Zero can spiral inside the Hellcat all day. Japanese pilots know this. American pilots are learning not to care. Commander David McCampbell takes command of Air Group 15 in February 1944. At 33 years old, he's older than most fighter pilots. He graduated from the Naval Academy in 1933, but didn't enter flight training until 1938. When the war started, he was stationed aboard the carrier Wasp. He survived its sinking in September 1942. Now he commands an entire air group aboard the Essex, and he's determined to maximize the Hellcat's advantages while avoiding its weaknesses. McCampbell gathers his squadron commanders in Essex's ready room. On the blackboard, he draws the energy management diagram that will define American fighter tactics for the rest of the war. The Zero turns tighter. Everyone knows this, so we don't turn with them. We maintain energy advantage. We attack from altitude. We dive through, shoot, and zoom, climb back to altitude using our speed. The Zero can't follow. If a Zero gets on your tail, you don't turn, you dive. At 400 miles per hour, nothing can catch you. You dive until you've separated, then you climb back up to altitude and start again. Lieutenant Alexander Vraciu, one of McCampbell's most aggressive pilots, raises his hand. What if they're already low when we find them? Then you make one pass and disengage. Don't get suckered into a turning fight at low altitude. That's fighting on their terms. We fight on our terms, or we don't fight at all. This tactical doctrine, combined with the Hellcat's technical superiority, creates a killing machine. But doctrine and technology mean nothing without the industrial capacity to deploy them at scale. In early 1944, Grumman's factory in Bethpage, New York, produces Hellcats at a rate that would have seemed impossible 2 years earlier. The assembly line runs continuously. 3 shifts, 24 hours per day. At peak production in March 1945, workers complete 1 Hellcat every single hour around the clock. By war's end, Grumman will have produced 12,275 F6Fs in just 30 months. Compare that to Japan's total Zero production of approximately 10,500 across 7 years. The mathematics are brutal. Japan is fighting an enemy that can build fighters faster than Japanese pilots can shoot them down. Even if every Japanese pilot achieved a 10-to-1 kill ratio, they'd still lose, because America can build 12 Hellcats for every 0 Japan produces. But Japanese pilots aren't achieving 10-to-1 anymore. By spring 1944, the kill ratio has reversed. American pilots are killing Japanese aircraft at rates approaching 10-to-1 in American favor. The reason isn't just better aircraft. It's better training, better tactics, better institutional learning, and better industrial logistics. While American pilots rotate home to teach the next generation, Japanese pilots stay in combat until they die. When a veteran Zero pilot with 1,000 hours of combat experience gets killed, all that knowledge dies with him. His replacement arrives with minimal training and no combat wisdom. That replacement dies quickly. His replacement has even less training. The spiral accelerates downward. Japanese Navy pilot training began the war at 700 hours. By January 1945, it drops to 275 hours. By late 1944, some pilots arrive at operational squadrons with as little as 40 hours total flight time. 40 hours. Many haven't even completed carrier qualifications. Some have never fired their guns in anything but basic gunnery training. American Navy pilots average 525 hours of flight time before entering combat. Many have over 1,000 hours. They've practiced carrier landings until they can do them in darkness with no moon. They've practiced deflection, shooting, energy management, tactical formations. They've been taught by veterans who survived actual combat and know what works. The gap is unbridgeable. No amount of bushido spirit can overcome such disparity in training and preparation. Admiral Jizaburo Ozawa commands the Japanese carrier strike force as it sails from Tawi-Tawi on June 13, 1944. His orders are to destroy the American invasion fleet approaching the Marianas. His carriers hold 430 aircraft, a substantial force by any measure. But these aren't the veteran pilots of Pearl Harbor or Midway. Those men are dead. These are their inadequately trained replacements, flying aircraft that are increasingly obsolescent, attacking an enemy that's grown exponentially stronger. Ozawa knows this. His intelligence staff knows this. They sail anyway because orders are orders, and surrender is unthinkable. The Japanese warrior code demands that they fight regardless of odds. They'll fight magnificently. They'll fight with courage that exceeds any reasonable expectation. And they'll be slaughtered systematically by an industrial war machine that measures victory in production quotas and replacement rates. Vice Admiral Mark Mitcher commands Task Force 58, the American carrier force. 15 carriers, 7 battleships, cruisers and destroyers bristling with anti-aircraft guns. And aboard those carriers, 480 Hellcats, their pilots rested, trained, confident. They've been practicing coordinated air defense, using radar to vector fighters to incoming raids, creating overlapping layers of interception that make reaching the fleet nearly impossible. The American pilots know what's coming. They've been briefed on Japanese capabilities and weaknesses. They've practiced the tactics that exploit Hellcat advantages. They're eager for combat because they've been trained to expect victory. Not hope for it. Expect it. On June 18th, the two forces begin maneuvering for position. American submarines shadow the Japanese fleet, reporting positions, courses, speeds. Radar operators scan the horizon. Fighter directors plot intercept courses. Everyone waits for first contact. The stage is set for the most one-sided aerial battle in naval history. The Japanese are about to learn that all their laughter about fat American fighters was catastrophically premature. The Hellcat is about to earn its fearsome reputation, and Japanese naval aviation is about to be effectively destroyed in a single day's carnage. June 19th, 1944, 10:23 in the morning. Aboard the carrier, Lexington, radar operators stare at their scopes with growing alarm. Bogies, lots of them. Range 140 miles and closing. The Japanese are launching their first strike. Admiral Mark Mitcher makes the call instantly. Launch everything. Get every fighter in the air. 450 Hellcats scramble from 15 carriers. The massive coordinated launch takes minutes, not hours. American carrier operations have been refined to industrial efficiency. Within 30 minutes, The entire fighter complement is airborne, stacked from 10,000 to 30,000 feet, creating a defensive barrier that Japanese bombers must penetrate to reach the fleet. Fighter directors aboard the carriers watch their radar scopes, vectoring Hellcat divisions toward the incoming raid. The Japanese formation consists of 69 aircraft, 45 Yokosuka Judy dive bombers escorted by 24 Zero fighters. They're flying at 18,000 feet, optimistic altitude. They expect to surprise the Americans. They expect to break through and deliver devastating attacks on the carriers. They're wrong about everything. Commander Charles Brewer leads Fighting Squadron 15 off Essex. 8 Hellcats in tight formation. His radar controller vectors him toward the incoming raid. Vector 280, bogies at Angels 18, range 60 miles. Brewer climbs to 25,000 feet. Altitude equals energy equals life. He spots the Japanese formation below, a dense cluster of aircraft maintaining tight discipline. They haven't seen him yet. He keys his radio. Tally-ho, commencing attack. The 8 Hellcats roll inverted and dive. Their attack approach exceeds 450 miles per hour. The 4 Zero fighters flying top cover never see them coming. Brewer lines up the lead Zero in his gun sight and fires. 2 second burst. The Zero explodes. Its wing separates. The aircraft tumbles toward the ocean, trailing flame and debris. Ensign Richard Fowler takes the next Zero. He fires from 300 yards, walking his tracers through the Japanese fighter's fuselage. The Zero catches fire, rolls inverted, and dives into the sea. 4 Japanese fighters destroyed in the first 15 seconds of combat. The remaining Zeros scatter, abandoning the bombers they're supposed to protect. Now the Hellcats go after the Judies. Lieutenant Junior Grade George Carr rolls in on a dive bomber already in its attack dive. He fires from behind, stitching the bomber from tail to cockpit. The Judy explodes. Carr pulls up hard, scanning for threats. Another Judy crosses in front of him. He rolls, fires, hits. The second bomber breaks apart, its wings folding upward before the aircraft tumbles into pieces. The massacre continues for 30 minutes. Of 69 Japanese aircraft in the first raid, 42 are destroyed before a single one gets close enough to attack the American fleet. The surviving bombers scatter, jettison their bombs into empty ocean, and run for their lives. Few make it back to their carriers. Admiral Ozawa launches a second raid. 128 aircraft this time, mostly bombers with fighter escort. They fly into the same meat grinder. Hellcats are waiting at every altitude. The Japanese never coordinate their attack. Individual formations arrive piecemeal, allowing American fighters to concentrate against each group sequentially. Lieutenant Alexander Vraciu leads 12 Hellcats from Fighting Squadron 16 off Lexington. His radar controller vectors him toward a formation of Judy dive bombers at 17,000 feet. Vraciu spots them. Counts quickly. 50 aircraft. His 12 Hellcats against 50 Japanese. The odds don't concern him. He's flying a Hellcat. The Japanese aren't. Blue group, stay high. Red group, follow me down. Vraciu rolls into his attack. He selects the trailing Judy in the formation and fires. The bomber explodes. He adjusts aim, fires again. Second bomber destroyed. Third bomber. Fourth. The Japanese formation disintegrates. Bombers scatter in every direction. Some try to dive away. Vraciu follows one down, firing in short bursts. 5th kill. 6th. He checks his ammunition counters. Still plenty. 7th bomber falls spinning into the Pacific. 8 minutes after the engagement started, Vraciu has destroyed 6 Judy dive bombers. He's used only 360 rounds of ammunition. When he lands on Lexington, cameras capture him grinning broadly, holding up 6 fingers to Admiral Mitcher watching from the bridge. The Admiral smiles back. The second Japanese raid loses 97 aircraft. Only a handful reach the American fleet. 1 bomb hits the battleship South Dakota, causing 30 casualties but not crippling the ship. That single bomb hit represents the total Japanese success for the day. A third raid of 47 aircraft dies similarly, then a fourth raid of 82. By late afternoon, 325 Japanese aircraft have been destroyed in aerial combat. American losses total 16 Hellcats in air-to-air combat, 16. The kill ratio approaches 20-1 in American favor. Japanese pilots who survived describe the experience with trauma bordering on disbelief. Lieutenant Zenji Abe from the carrier Junyo escapes with his life after watching his entire squadron annihilated. He'll write in his diary that night, "The American fighters were everywhere, every altitude, every direction. We could not evade them. We could not outclimb them. When we tried to turn away, they followed with speed we could not match. Their guns, the sound of their guns firing is like thunder. When they hit, aircraft don't just go down. They explode. They disintegrate. I watched 7 planes from my unit destroyed in less than a minute. The Americans didn't just defeat us. They erased us. The psychological impact on surviving Japanese pilots is catastrophic. These men were trained to believe in their superiority. Many fought early in the war when Japanese aircraft dominated. Now they've witnessed industrial warfare at its most brutal. They've seen training and technology overcome courage and determination. They've learned that spirit cannot defeat systematic preparation. Commander David McCampbell leads Air Group 15 through 4 separate engagements during the day. He personally destroys 7 Japanese aircraft. His air group claims 68 destroyed total. When he lands on Essex at sunset, ground crew count the empty ammunition boxes. Nearly every Hellcat has expended most or all of its ammunition. The pilots are exhausted but exhilarated. They've participated in the most successful day of aerial combat in American naval history. Back in the Japanese fleet, Admiral Ozawa assesses his losses with horror. 325 aircraft destroyed. Perhaps 50 more so damaged they'll never fly again. Only 105 aircraft remain operational across his entire force, and 2 of his carriers, Taiho and Shokaku, have been torpedoed by American submarines. Both will sink within hours. When he attempts another attack on June 20th, his remaining aircraft are intercepted and destroyed with similar efficiency. The Battle of the Philippine Sea effectively ends Japanese carrier aviation as a fighting force. The institutional knowledge accumulated over 7 years of warfare is destroyed in 2 days of combat. The veteran pilots are dead. The replacement pilots lack the training to compete. The carrier fleet survives but has no effective air groups to operate from its decks. Japanese pilots will continue fighting, some with extraordinary courage, some with extraordinary skill. But never again will Japan field a carrier air group capable of threatening American operations. The Hellcat has done what it was designed to do. It has kept American boys alive while systematically destroying enemy air power through superior technology, superior training, and overwhelming numbers. One American pilot watching the slaughter remarks to his wingman, "Hell, this is like an old-fashioned turkey shoot." The name captures perfectly the one-sided nature of the battle. The Great Marianas Turkey Shoot, the day when 6 50-caliber machine guns and 2,000 horsepower proved that warfare had fundamentally changed. Individual skill matters, but industrial capacity matters more. October 24th, 1944. The Battle of Leyte Gulf. Commander David McCampbell launches from Essex with his wingman, Ensign Roy Rushing. The mission is routine combat air patrol. What happens next will establish a record that stands to this day. McCampbell's radio crackles. Bandits inbound. Vector 320. Estimate 60 aircraft. 60 Japanese aircraft headed toward the American fleet. 2 Hellcats. McCampbell checks his fuel gauge and curses. His main tank is only half full. There wasn't time to top off before the scramble. He's got maybe 90 minutes of flight time, including combat. This should be a mission for a full squadron. Instead, it's him and Rushing against overwhelming odds. He doesn't hesitate. "Roy, stay with me. We're going in." They climb to 30,000 feet and spot the Japanese formation below. 60 aircraft, Zeros, Oscars, bombers. A massive strike group that could devastate the fleet if it breaks through. McCampbell and Rushing are the only fighters in position to intercept. McCampbell rolls inverted and dives. His Hellcat accelerates past 450 miles per hour. He selects a 0 on the formation's edge and opens fire. The Zero explodes. He adjusts aim. Second, Zero destroyed. The Japanese formation breaks apart in confusion. They weren't expecting to be attacked this far from the fleet. They weren't expecting just 2 fighters to have the audacity to engage 60 aircraft. For 90 minutes, McCampbell and Rushing wage a running battle against the entire Japanese strike force. Every time the Japanese try to reform, the 2 Hellcats dive through their formation, guns blazing, then climb back to altitude before the Zeros can react. It's energy management perfected. Dive, shoot, climb, dive, shoot, climb. Again and again until the Japanese formation is so scattered and demoralized that they abort their mission entirely. When McCampbell finally lands on the carrier Langley, Essex's deck being fouled by other aircraft, his engine coughs and dies before ground crew can shut it down. The tanks are bone dry. His 6 machine guns have exactly 2 rounds remaining total, 2 rounds out of 3,400. He's fired 3,398 bullets in sustained combat. His gun barrels are so hot they're glowing. He climbs out of the cockpit exhausted. His squadron mates crowd around. How many? 9, confirmed, McCampbell says. 7 Zeros, 2 Oscars. Roy got 6 more. 15 Japanese aircraft destroyed by 2 Hellcats in a single mission. It's a record that will never be equaled. McCampbell receives the Medal of Honor. He'll end the war as the Navy's all-time leading ace, with 34 confirmed kills. Every single one scored in a Hellcat. But McCampbell's personal success is just one data point in a larger story of systematic destruction. By late 1944, Japanese pilot quality has degraded beyond salvaging. Replacement pilots arrive at operational squadrons with 40 to 70 hours total flight time. Many have never performed a combat dive. Some have never fired their guns at a moving target. They're sent into battle against American pilots with 500 to 1,000 hours experience, flying aircraft that are superior in every measurable category except low-speed maneuverability. The results are predictable and horrific. American pilots describe shooting down Japanese aircraft as unsportsmanlike. The skill gap is so enormous that encounters feel less like combat and more like execution. Veterans express guilt about killing pilots, who clearly have no business being in combat. Saburo Sakai, the legendary Japanese ace, experiences this degradation firsthand. On June 24, 1944, while based at Iwo Jima, he makes a fatal mistake. He spots 15 aircraft approaching and assumes they're friendly Japanese fighters. He flies toward them to join formation. Only when he's within half a mile does he realize his error. They're Grumman Hellcats. 4 Hellcats immediately roll in pursuit. Sakai, flying with only one eye, having lost depth perception from his Guadalcanal injury, executes defensive maneuvers that should be impossible. He skids, rolls, brakes in directions the Hellcats can't predict. For 20 minutes, the chase continues. The Hellcats fire repeatedly. Sakai evades every burst. When he finally lands back at Iwo Jima, ground crew inspect his Zero, expecting to find bullet damage. They find nothing. Not a single hit. 15 Hellcats engaged him for 20 minutes and failed to land a single round. Sakai's skill is extraordinary, but he's a relic, a survivor from an earlier era when Japanese pilots trained for years before entering combat. Most of his squadron mates are dead. The replacement pilots can't perform 1/10 of his evasive maneuvers. When Hellcats attack them, they die quickly and without ever threatening their attackers. American production has reached levels Japan cannot hope to match. Grumman produces 12,275 Hellcats between June 1942 and November 1945. 30 months, 12,000 aircraft. At peak production, 1 Hellcat rolls off the assembly line every single hour, 24 hours per day. Japan produces approximately 10,500 Zeros total across the entire war, from 1940 through 1945. 7 years of production failing to match what America produces in 30 months. And that's just fighters. American shipyards are launching escort carriers faster than Japan can sink them. American training programs are producing pilots faster than combat can consume them. The mathematics are inescapable. Japan cannot win a war of attrition against American industrial capacity. Every Japanese pilot killed is essentially irreplaceable. Every American pilot killed is replaced within months by someone equally or better trained. Every Japanese aircraft destroyed takes months to replace, if it can be replaced at all. Every American aircraft destroyed is replaced within weeks. By war's end, Hellcat pilots are credited with destroying 5,223 enemy aircraft. Total Hellcat combat losses, 270. The kill ratio is 19-1 in American favor. Against the Zero specifically, the ratio approaches 13-1. This isn't just superiority. This is dominance, approaching totality. The Hellcat proves that individual courage and skill matter less than systematic preparation and overwhelming resources. Japanese pilots fought with bravery that demands respect, but bravery, without adequate training, adequate equipment, adequate support, and adequate replacements, leads only to death. Saburo Sakai survives the war and reflects on his experiences fighting Hellcats. Years later, during a reunion with American veterans, he's offered a flight in a restored P-51 Mustang. After the flight, translator Jim Crossley asks what he thought. Sakai grins. "Tell them the Mustang is almost as good as a Hellcat." The statement contains grudging admiration and acknowledgement. The Hellcat represented everything Sakai's warrior code opposed. Heavy instead of light, durable instead of agile, produced in overwhelming quantity instead of carefully crafted. But it worked. It won. That's all that matters in warfare. The final vindication of Grumman's design philosophy comes not from any single battle, but from cumulative statistics. Hellcat pilots achieved ace-in-a-day status repeatedly throughout the war. They consistently destroyed enemy aircraft at ratios approaching 10-1 or better. They did this while suffering the lowest loss rates of any American fighter in the Pacific. The Hellcat kept American boys alive. That was Roy Grumman's design objective. Keep them alive and let them inflict maximum damage on the enemy. By both measures, the F6F Hellcat succeeded beyond any reasonable expectation. It ended Japanese naval aviation as a fighting force. It secured American air superiority across the Pacific. And it brought thousands of pilots home alive who would have died in lesser aircraft. The Japanese laughed at the fat American fighter when they first saw it in August 1943. By August 1945, those who survived weren't laughing. They were relieved the war had ended before the Hellcats killed them all.